On March 6, 2026, the Department of Justice finally published 16 pages of FBI interview summaries that they'd been hiding for weeks. And these weren't just any documents. These were detailed accounts from a woman who told FBI agents 4 separate times that Donald Trump sexually assaulted her when she was between 13 and 15 years old, after Jeffrey Epstein introduced them in the early 1980s. The woman described in graphic detail how Trump forced her to perform oral sex on him, how she bit his penis in self-defense, and how Trump then punched her in the head and told someone to get this little bitch the hell out of here. Hit subscribe because what I'm about to show you isn't speculation or rumor. These are official FBI interview documents that Trump's own Justice Department tried to bury by marking them duplicative, even though they clearly weren't, and the cover-up only unraveled when investigative reporters caught them red-handed. Let me walk you through how this came to light, because back in February, NPR started noticing something weird when going through the massive Epstein files database. Certain document serial numbers were just skipping, like you'd see files numbered 1, 2, 3, then suddenly jump to 7, 8, 9 with no explanation. When NPR dug deeper, they discovered that 53 pages appeared to have been deliberately withheld from the public database, and many of those missing pages were FBI interview summaries with women who had accused Trump of sexual abuse when they were minors. One of these women gave the FBI an incredibly detailed and disturbing account that the agents took seriously enough to interview her 4 separate times between 2019 and 2021. According to the FBI documents that have now been released, this woman told agents that sometime around 1983 or 1984, when she was approximately 13 years old and living in South Carolina, Jeffrey Epstein responded to a babysitting advertisement her mother had placed. Epstein began sexually abusing her shortly after that, and he would fly or drive her to New York or New Jersey, where he trafficked her to multiple men, including Donald Trump. The woman told the FBI that Epstein took her to what she described as a very tall building with huge rooms, somewhere in the New York or New Jersey area, and when they got there, Epstein introduced her to Trump, and then Trump asked everyone else to leave the room. Share this video with everyone you know, because once they were alone, according to the FBI interview summary, Trump said something to the effect of, "Let me teach you how little girls are supposed to be," and then he unzipped his pants and forced her head down to his exposed penis. The woman told FBI agents that she bit the shit out of it in self-defense, which caused Trump to strike her and say words to the effect of, "Get this little bitch the hell out of here." In a later interview, she clarified that Trump had pulled her hair and punched her on the side of the head after she bit him. She described 2 additional interactions with Trump, but asked the FBI if they could move on to another subject before providing details about those encounters. Here's what makes this allegation particularly significant. The FBI clearly found this woman credible enough to interview her 4 times, which is not something they would do if they thought she was making it up. In fact, the Post and Courier newspaper in Charleston did extensive follow-up reporting in March 2026 and was able to independently verify numerous details the woman had provided to the FBI about her life, her family background, and her legal history using archived government records and court documents. For example, the woman told agents she only saw Epstein once in a non-sexual context at a Rick James concert in Savannah, Georgia, when she was about 15, and newspaper archives confirmed that Rick James did regularly perform in the Savannah area during that time period. She also described her mother embezzling money around $1,985 to pay off Epstein, which resulted in her mother ending up in federal prison, and records confirmed her mother was indeed involved in a crime of exactly that nature during that time frame. Make sure you're subscribed to Daniel Cross Show, because after NPR published their investigation on February 24th, showing these FBI interview summaries were missing from the public database, the Justice Department initially tried to deflect and claim nothing had been deleted. But then CNN did their own analysis and confirmed that dozens of witness interview memos were indeed missing, specifically including the 3 FBI 302 forms documenting interviews with this Trump accuser. The pressure kept building, and finally, on March 5th and 6th, the DOJ quietly published 16 pages along with a brief statement claiming the documents had been incorrectly deemed duplicative. That explanation is complete bullshit. First, these interview summaries were not duplicates of anything else in the database. They contained unique allegations that appeared nowhere else. Second, if this was really just an innocent clerical error, why did it take investigative reporters catching them to force the release? And third, even after supposedly fixing this mistake, there are still 37 pages related to this woman's allegations that remain missing from the public database right now, including the actual notes from the FBI interviews and law enforcement reports. The Justice Department has offered no explanation for why they continue to hide them. Representative Robert Garcia, the ranking Democrat on the House Oversight Committee, has been particularly aggressive in demanding answers. On February 25th, Garcia reviewed unredacted evidence logs at the Department of Justice And afterward, he released a statement saying, Oversight Democrats can confirm that the DOJ appears to have illegally withheld FBI interviews with this survivor who accused President Trump of heinous crimes. He added that covering up direct evidence of a potential assault by the President of the United States is the most serious possible crime in this White House cover-up, and announced the Oversight Committee would be opening a parallel investigation. Garcia pointed out that under the Epstein Files Transparency Act that Congress passed, these records must immediately be shared with Congress and the American public, and the Justice Department is breaking the law by continuing to withhold them. The White House response has been predictably defensive. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told reporters the allegations are completely baseless and came from a sadly disturbed woman with an extensive criminal history. She claimed the accusations are backed by zero evidence or facts, which is interesting to say about allegations that the FBI found credible enough to investigate with 4 separate interviews, and that independent newspaper reporting has corroborated in terms of verifiable details. Leavitt's attacks on the accuser's character are also disgusting when you consider this woman was allegedly trafficked and sexually abused as a young teenager. Share this with anyone who thinks the Epstein files totally exonerated Trump, which is what he claimed before these hidden FBI documents started coming out. Trump posted on social media that the Epstein files had totally exonerated him. But that statement looks ridiculous now that we know his Justice Department was actively hiding FBI interview summaries describing him sexually assaulting a 13-year-old girl. The exoneration claim also ignores all the other evidence showing how close Trump and Epstein were during the 1980s and 1990s, including Trump's own past statements calling Epstein a terrific guy who likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche said back in January that nearly 3 million documents related to Jeffrey Epstein are being withheld from public release, supposedly to protect victim privacy. But Democrats have called bullshit on that explanation. The problem is the Justice Department already proved they're terrible at protecting victim privacy. They released the names, phone numbers, addresses, and in some cases, nude photos of dozens of Epstein victims in the initial file dump because they failed to properly redact that information. So it's pretty rich for them to now claim they're withholding millions of additional documents out of concern for victim privacy when they managed to remember to redact or hide the documents that make Trump look bad. Make sure you stay subscribed, because what we know for certain right now is this. A woman told the FBI 4 times that Donald Trump sexually assaulted her when she was 13 years old. She provided extensive, verifiable details that checked out when journalists investigated them. The FBI found her credible enough to conduct multiple in-depth interviews. Trump's Justice Department tried to hide these FBI interview summaries by marking them as duplicates even though they weren't. Investigative reporters caught the cover-up and forced the DOJ to release some documents. 37 pages are still being withheld right now with no explanation. And House Oversight Democrats are investigating whether laws were broken. Those are the facts, and no amount of White House spin about baseless accusations changes what's actually in those FBI documents or explains why the Justice Department worked so hard to keep them hidden. Leave a comment on whether Congress should hold Attorney General Pam Bondi in contempt for overseeing this cover-up, because that's exactly what House Oversight Democrats are considering right now. They argue Bondi's Justice Department has violated the Epstein Files Transparency Act by withholding these documents, and they're demanding she either produce the full unredacted files immediately or face contempt charges. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.